All right, so first off, I love this study that they did. Did you actually know that just simulating a smile can release endorphins and make you feel happier? Yes, there was an actual study that was done at the University of Kansas by Tara Kraft and Sarah Pressman. And what they had found was that if you bite your pencil, just putting a pencil in your mouth in the third picture in this one, it will actually signal your body to start releasing endorphins, so then you start feeling a lot better. And it's a physiological reaction that happens seamlessly, and it just kind of shows you that doing things mindfully can actually get you to a place of control over certain aspects of, say, stress. So if you didn't know about this study, I think they actually do teach that at, was it like Harvard or somewhere like that. I remember there was another
Really?
class. There was a happiness class
Yeah.
that they had, and they literally teach you this about this study, and they'll have them do it. But in these three pictures, if you notice that people that do bite on a pen in different manners doesn't necessarily elicit that same sort of physiological response. Just like the same way breathing, as in deep abdominal breathing, when you're breathing low and deep, will help stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, is not the same as breathing shallow, like you're catching your breath during exercise. So making sure you do that. I did want to mention though, like, this is not a catch-all. It doesn't mean it happens instantaneously or even all the time, because your emotions are very complex. All right, there's a lot of things involved, including not just your psychology, but your physiology, your biology, all these different things that are built into our systems on helping us mitigate that. And just running, because a lot of it's run just unconsciously by our bodies. So I think what I wanted to start with on here, this is the inner smile. That was something I totally forgot to touch upon. I found out about the inner smile when I was studying Taoism and other Eastern beliefs, and that whole idea is when you meditate, you focus on uplifting your energy, just like the smile of biting a pen or pencil sideways. The physiological feeling that you get, you can focus on that and start replicating that, and just like have that uplifting, like you feel that coming up through. And then it goes through steps on this. But again, Taoism, it's a little known one. I didn't know about it for many years studying meditation, and then I happened across it, and I thought, oh yeah, it just makes sense. And then they started coming out with more of these studies that show that physiologically speaking, you can do it just by biting a pen or pencil. So yeah, on that one, yeah, this was a very big article. I wanted to go over a bit on emotions, and there's many different types of theories out there, emotional theories. This particular one was 6 basic types of emotions and their effect on human behavior, and I believe they run off of was it Dr. Paul Eckman and his daughter Dr. Eve Eckman, where they're actually running an interactive mapping of emotions on, or they're calling it the Atlas of Emotions, where they're taking photos associated with these 6 basic, actually 5 basic emotions. I know this one says 6 basic ones, but on their atlas they kind of narrowed it down to 5. By the time this particular article was written, the 6 were happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. And then the 5 basic ones for the Atlas of Emotions that they did was, because they surveyed 248 scientists, they wanted to try to get a general consensus in the science community, and that's anger, disgust, enjoyment, fear, and sadness. So that's what the Atlas was trying to make, trying to highlight through that. And I believe, like I said, they're doing a whole interactive photo montage of what they're trying to do. I want to look more into it. I don't know for certain, but it's something interesting you can look up at. Outside of that, I believe it talks in this article, because it goes over a lot of it, and there's this whole breakdown between it, but it does go into other theories of emotions, where they talk about primary Now, instead of just basic emotions, you have primary, secondary, and tertiary emotions. And your primary ones are essentially like anger, disgust, enjoyment, fear, sadness, all those main ones that they had. Your secondary emotions were supposed to be ones that kind of derive from that, becoming a little more specific, and even further into it, going a step further into your tertiary emotions. An example they give here is if one of your primary emotions is love, your secondary emotions would be aspects like affection and longing. So you can kind of see that it kind of comprises that overarching primary emotion of love by having those secondaries like affection and longing kind of consist of it. And then you go even further with that. I believe they said if you go into affection, which is the secondary emotion, into tertiary emotions such as liking, caring, compassion, and tenderness. So all that just means it was kind of like a tiered way of viewing it. Some people agree with it, some people don't. It's just one way to view that. However, I am actually a fan of psychologist Robert Plutchik. I hope I'm saying his name right. And his Wheel of Emotions, which this is his Wheel of Emotions. Wheel of Emotions, turn, turn, turn. Tell us a lesson that we should learn. And what I like about it is there are 8 different emotions on here, basic emotions. And with this wheel, with this whole wheel on here, it's the center ones which are your basic 8. So joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. And as you go further outward and less, there's less of a saturation on the color. Those are lesser versions of it. And more towards the center, these ones here are actually more intense versions of each of the emotions. So for joy, right, the more intense version of that is ecstasy. For sadness, the more intense version of that is grief. Or anger, it goes to rage versus annoyance, which is on the opposite end of it. These ones in between, the gray ones in between are overlaps. And the way that it kind of goes is, say if you have a combination of joy and anticipation, you'll subsequently get optimism, which I can't click on that. It's wonderful.
I don't think I can see your mouse on here.
No, I think I disabled the mouse, but that's okay. Yeah, because if I click on that, that's gonna go in here. But yeah, if you have joy and anticipation, it'll create optimism. And then I think I was talking to you earlier about this too, where it's very closely aligned to, say, if you have anticipation and anger or annoyance, you'll get aggressiveness. And a lot of people kind of view that as well, obviously it's a negative thing because being too aggressive, like when they see CEOs being aggressive with certain things.
Right.
Right? Like they might have a combination, because it does say that you could have a combination of three different basic emotions, and that can create newer nuances of that emotion. Right? So say again, like kind of going back to that CEO, because a lot of people think CEOs are jerks, which a lot of them may be, but a lot of times too they're trying to build a business that they're passionate about, so something that brings them joy, anticipation of succeeding, but they might be annoyed or angry about maybe execution, maybe the when they get the results of the sales, they're not what they expected, so then it starts coming across like that.
Trying to understand where they're coming from, right?
Correct. Yes. And clarity in message, trying to understand not just from where you're coming from, but where other people are. Again, that might be a form of displacement, that could be a projection, there could be so many different things involved. Like I said, your emotions, your mind, your psychology, there's so many different aspects of yourself that make it all complex, and there is no cookie cutter version of it. But again, understanding stuff like this can actually help you at least get a better footing, so you have much more of a lexicon to discuss it, label it, discuss it, and hopefully mitigate any negative or adverse reactions that you might have. So this is Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions. I think the last thing I missed on here was another reason why I like this particular one is these emotions are lined up in a specific way where the opposite side of them is its polar opposite. So opposite of joy is grief, opposite of admiration is loathing, opposite of terror is rage, opposite of amazement is vigilance. right? So there's many different levels for it. And I actually really like this version of it. That's just my preference. You might find the mapping of emotions, the 6 basic ones from Eckman and his daughter, both doctors, by the way, much more relatable, and that's okay. Whichever one is your favorite one, run with it. But this is those are at least 2 different ones, and of course there are other versions of emotional theory that are out there. I highly suggest you go research them, just like we're doing here. Hey, thanks for checking out my video on here. If you like the content that I'm putting out, please be sure to like and subscribe down below and add a comment, because I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on this sort of content and these topics that I'm putting out there. All right, until next time, stay golden.